Welcome to Saturday versus Sunday. I'm Jeff Dover. With me is John Barbin. Let's talk football.
All right, we're doing our NCAA Week 9 reaction, right? We're in Week 9, starting with our best evers and then going on to our worst evers. Then I have our flowers section. I'm going to divide it up into coal and flowers.
Very good.
Because I can't fit. There's so many worst evers.
Yeah,
I had to go into giving out lumps of coal.
That's a good call. That's one of the few NCAA weeks where I had, normally I have trouble coming up with 3 worst evers, but it wasn't that hard this week.
Oh boy, no, it wasn't.
Yeah.
All right, shall I get started?
Please.
Okay, here we go. So my number 3 best ever thing I saw this weekend was Texas Tech's game-winning drive against Iowa State. Now, we covered this really nicely here. I had no idea why Texas Tech was getting whatever it was, 13.5 points. It just didn't make any sense. And clearly that worked out.
I mean, it was Iowa State was ranked. It was at home. Texas Tech was unranked, I guess. But the way Texas Tech's been playing, you called it. Like they're playing better than what I think they look like on paper.
Yeah, and Baron Morton was back, so maybe that's part of it. Their starter was back now, but he threw a couple of picks. So, we can never know what it would have been like with the backup. So maybe that's what they thought was going on. But like we said, we thought the backup looked good too. But so the game was awesome. If anyone watched this game, if you didn't, check it out on replay. This was just back and forth. Good defense, good offense. Just Iowa State plays exciting games. And this is another one. This is a typical Iowa State game that came down to the end. It was just really exciting. Good. This is one of those games where everyone played well on offense, on defense, just people put up a good effort on all sides of the ball. There was, you can't say in this game a particular unit on either side of the field blew it as much as all the units just played well. Like both offenses, both defenses, everyone just played well. But on the game-winning drive with maybe, there was less than 30 seconds left by the time they were done with it. Texas Tech overcame 3 false starts and they had to convert a 4th and 8 all on that drive. And this, if you've been watching Iowa State, they've done this multiple times to other people, like an utterly improbable fourth quarter time running out drive, converting 4th downs, overcoming false starts, over just all of that stuff. This was Rocco Beck's thing. A couple of weeks ago, I said, if I had one quarterback to pick to win the game, it was Rocco Beck. But I guess Baron Morton's got to be on that list now too.
Oh, that was a good one. And that was a great ending. And it was, like you said, that was just a really good college football game, very entertaining.
And this just jumbles up the
Big 12. Yeah. Okay, so the number 3 best thing that I saw this weekend is hats off to Vandy winning again. 6-3.
Got them on the wall. I don't know. Yeah, they're up there somewhere.
No, you can see it beside Oregon.
It seems like, yeah.
Well, it's 6-3. No one predicted they were going to be good, but it's really about also how they're playing. Like the offensive defensive line has been really good, and Pavia is just amazing. He's I think this one he didn't have a great stat line, but he made plays when he had to, and it's just really happy to see them doing that well. And that was this was a game that would have been, after having a big upset earlier in the season, you would have followed it up with a loss against a not a bad Auburn team, especially at Auburn, but that was really big for them to get the win. So I had the 6-3 for Vandy is fantastic.
Well, so they're bowl eligible, and they should be 6-3. They should only have 1 loss right now.
Yeah, they should be 7-2. Well, and they have the Georgia State thing, which was super weird, but it's so
Georgia State. There's no reason for them to have lost that game. I don't know what happened there.
No.
But every now and then a team just is gotten by a team that shouldn't have got them. They could have won the Missouri game that went to overtime, and then the Texas game. Fine, okay. I think Texas kind of had them. They were hanging in there the whole time. They covered the 18-point spread, but that's the only game I think. Yeah, they just couldn't quite catch Texas. They were with them. They just didn't really have a moment where they had the game in hand like they did with all the other games. So this team should only have 1 loss.
Yeah. And it's going to make the last couple of games of the schedule pretty interesting because it's at LSU and then they host Tennessee.
Yeah, they can beat them both.
Those a bit,
as if their conference wins total was a half.
Yeah.
and to your point, last thing I'll say about this, they control the game. When you play Vandy, you're in a Vandy game. Yeah. They did it to Texas. Yeah. They did it to Alabama. They did it to everyone they've played against. You're in their game, not the other way around. So yeah, they control the game that they're in, which is unbelievable. Good for Vandy. All right. So my number 2 best thing I saw was the second half, South Carolina's second half, both offense and defense. So they scored 27 unanswered. I think maybe the first 3 of that was at the end of the first half, and which was really impressive because they came out to a fast start, but they went up 14-0. Then they gave that lead up by the end of the towards the end of the second quarter, and it looked like, all right, Texas A&M weathered the storm. You know, they're coming back. They're righting the ship, as it were. And then I'm pretty sure South Carolina tied it up right at half, so they kind of stole a bit of that momentum right back.
Yep.
And then in the second half, just blew their doors off. It was a complete avalanche. Yeah. It was the defensive line. Now I think that's the best defensive line in college. It has to be. And and the thing is, they didn't even get a sack till the fourth quarter, third or fourth quarter, and then they just completely, like I said, it's just a tsunami. Like, and that stadium is awesome.
Yeah, the stadium's amazing. That the William Bryce at night is a real advantage.
This is another team that should be 7-1 or whatever in 1. There's only one game maybe they should have lost, and other than that, this team's. And you know what? The Sellers, LaNorris Sellers, is going to be a problem if he keeps developing. I have him in my flower section.
If the passing can improve, he's going to be really, really good.
Like Heisman caliber. If he can just clean up some of the mistakes and improve the passing, this guy's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
So good for Beamer. I think we can confirm this marriage is a good marriage.
Oh yeah.
He's staying there for as long as they want to keep him. I think that's just it.
No, and they're well coached. Like they're well coached on offense and defense. Like everyone's where they're supposed to be. Like it was, they were, and he's had a lot of people leave in the last couple of years, and their personnel doesn't seem to have taken a big step back. You know what I mean? Like they're still had good running backs and wide receivers. That tight end is a monster. That like number 6, or he might just be a wide receiver. But it was, they were really, that was a great game.
They're fun to watch. It's weird because they don't have the Indiana machine offense. They have it's oddly they have a big play offense. They just explode for plays. Either Sellers or the running back or somebody just blows up a play, and 2 plays later they score. But then they also have like a big play defense that catches you for tackles for losses and interception. So they're kind of big plays on both sides. They're not. They don't do the bend, don't break, grind you down. They don't grind you down on offense, and they don't bend, don't break defense thing. It's just havoc on defense, big plays on offense. This has got to be one of the most fun teams to watch. If you haven't been watching them, you have to go back and watch some of their games. They're all like this.
No, for sure. And this is one of those things too, where they've lost a few games on the schedule, but if you're a South Carolina fan, you got to love how this team looks, like, and how they play. Like, that's really entertaining.
Like after this right now, everyone in the SEC has to be thinking, I don't want to go anywhere near that. Nobody wants to play this team
for sure.
Right now. How about this? Right now, every team in the SEC is thinking, God, I don't want to play Vandy, and God, I don't want to play South Carolina. That's exactly what they're all thinking right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
All right. Second best thing I saw NCAA this weekend is, and you're wearing it, was the Indiana, I was going to say comeback, from down 10, because they scored 40 some odd unanswered. 47. But it was just really great for Rourke to come back from the thumb surgery, which was really fast. And it was just sort of not sure if they were still going to be, you called them the machine earlier, which is exactly right, what they look like on offense. And so that was, and again, this is another game where, Indiana's had some big wins this season, and this could have been a game where they would lose in the past, but they really put their foot down, and and it was, and Rourke's fantastic from
they stomped them
Oakville, Ontario.
There's so many stats here. Oakville is the little town between where me and Jeff grew up. All right, so should we? I mean, there's so many stats in this game. I just want to throw a couple out here, or do you want to?
Yeah.
All right, so. This was this was my number 1 best ever. So we'll just combine the 2.
Oh, okay.
So they were dominant in all 3 phases of the game. Like, we know they have a good offense, specifically when Rourke's in. To me, this looks like this is the best team in college. Schedule, whatever. I don't think schedules matter. They're beating whoever they're beating. They're blowing their doors off. They're just that good. This offense, 47 unanswered points straight, and they're doing it rushing and receiving. Like, it doesn't matter how they do it. But the other thing is they had 15 tackles for loss, 7.5, 7 sacks. Like, the defense is just as good as the offense. It's not like they're a one-trick pony here. But then their special teams, they blocked a punt for a safety, and then Michigan State blew it on a wild snap on another punt. But they're just getting it all over the place, and 2 interceptions like this. There's nowhere you can look to find a weakness on this team so far this year. Like, after 9 games, I don't see the weakness. And maybe somebody else can see it, but I don't see it.
No, and it's a really good point about the defense, because when you score 47 unanswered, like, every time you score, the other team gets the ball back, right? So it's not uncommon. That's why you have high scoring games in college, because the other team's getting that many possessions every time you score a touchdown. But as you said, they scored 47 points, but still only gave up 193 total yards to Michigan State. So, like that, like you said, I think people think of the offense, that they for sure think of the offense, and it's really dynamic, and Rourke looks amazing, but like the defense is legit. So that's really something.
So now that they've got Ohio State and Michigan coming, so we'll see. This is the big test. Can they hold their own? Can they win both of those games? I don't see why they couldn't. Yeah, I know the argument is, well, who have they played so far? But
I mean, Washington's not bad. Nebraska's not bad. Like, and they blew them away. Like, Northwestern has a decent defense, and they scored 41 points on them. So, but you're right. It's essentially now a 2-game schedule, because they host Michigan next week, and then they're at Ohio State. So and they're probably going to be favored against Michigan, which is nuts.
And they've crushed teams that have beat Michigan, and they crushed Nebraska, who should have beat Ohio State. So if you wanted to do that transitive property thing and kind of compare teams that Ohio State has played and Indiana's played, Indiana's blasted teams that could have beat Ohio State. So I don't know. Again, I mean, I don't put too much into that, but if right now we don't have any other data points, but man, these, I don't see why they couldn't beat them all. They could run the table here in the game conference. All right. Well, we'll see. So that was my number one best.
Yes, that was your number one thing, which is good. So the number one thing that I saw this weekend, the NCAA, was Ole Miss, just scoring 63 points. That's another offense that looks like a machine. And, to have a receiver have 8 catches for 254 yards and 5 touchdowns is ridiculous.
Is that all?
So, yeah. And so that's, that was just really impressive. Again, this is not like, Arkansas is not bad. Like this, was, people thought it was going to be a much closer game than it was, but that was, throwing for 500 yards. This is one of those things where I'm really impressed on offense when, like, something is working and they just keep doing it. Like, they're like, well, we're just going to keep doing it so the other team stops us. And which is, people say that, but people rarely do that. Like, they'll try to be equal, like running and passing or something like that. So that's just an amazing offensive output.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, bless you. And especially because you're right, Arkansas has held some pretty strong teams to a lower point total than expected, especially like the Tennessee game. So it's not like this was a weak defensive team. This is like a legitimate SEC talent. Like, this is a team that can actually recruit
on the road too, right? It was at Arkansas.
So Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin's teams and Ole Miss is they'll do this, but then they'll have a clunker, like lose the Kentucky game. It's like, how does that happen in the same season? Yeah, good for Ole Miss. All right, on to the worst evers.
Oh man.
Yeah, I got a few here. So I did my thing where I make a category so I can pack
perfect
teams in. But
so between that and your coal, there's about 57 things you didn't like from this weekend.
I got some lumps of coal to give out, right? Yeah. Well, all right, we'll go. Okay,
let's go.
Number 3 worst ever: Florida Gators injuries.
Oh, yeah.
So they were in this game. They had the momentum. They had them. Georgia fans, you were
leading at the half.
Leading at the half. Oh, okay. So they lost DJ Lagway. So they've already lost their starting quarterback coming into this game, Mertz. Some people might argue Lagway was better anyways, but he definitely in the last couple of games showed how raw he is and how inexperienced he is.
Yeah.
With that said, the guy's oozing with talent. He's got all the pieces, and he looked good in this game. The worst thing is, though, a hamstring could take if not the
Oh,
season. That could be with him for years, right?
I've
Like a
never. It's
hamstring is
rare.
such a pain.
Well, it's rare to see a hamstring injury that bad where you're carted off. Like
Yeah.
normally you can you'd limp off or something, but the fact that they took him off on that is not a good sign.
All right. Well, hey, let's put your Dr. Dover hat on. Could that mean it tore?
Yep, it could mean that it tore. It could mean that it could be an avulsion fracture, which is sort of takes off a bit of the bone too, which would be bad. But
You went too quick there. Tell people what that means.
oh, sorry. It could be a torn muscle where it's just muscle fibers tear between muscle fibers, or when there's a muscle's attached to a bone, like that's every muscle's attached to a bone from one side or the other, and and so if the muscle can actually pull a piece of the bone off, that's called an avulsion fracture. So that'd be from the ischial tuberosity. So that'd be that. It could be. I don't know. I don't know anything about
Especially
it, but
because he was holding it right up at the top, right?
that's not a good sign. So, and it's hard to say, but either way, regardless, being carted off for a hamstring strain is not a good sign. And that's, like you said, hamstrings can really linger, but this is also, he's a freshman QB, like, and they're not going to be bowl eligible this year. So it's really going to be like, there's no point bringing him back, like any 1 minute before it's,
well, that's
100%
fine.
safe. I know, but
fine.
they don't have a lot of options left. Like, because that other guy that
they kind of
came
didn't
in
expect them to win any games this year, anyways.
I
And
know.
it's too bad because they could have won the Tennessee game. They could have won this game. This going into this season having this worst schedule in the history of schedules.
Yeah.
And now with Florida State not being anything, they could have probably had 7 or 8 win season here. But not anymore. That Warner's just not going to be able to do it. That poor kid. But anyway, so Lagway's down, sucks. They came into this game missing their starting running back, starting wide receiver, or number 1 running back, number 1 wide receiver, number 1 corner. Then they lost 3 more corners in this game. And I think a guard went out for some amount of time. So that's not making excuses, but boy, that all happened in the third quarter, and then the momentum started to shift. And Georgia needed that because Carson Beck was trying his hardest to throw this game. We'll get to that in his cold section. Anyway,
yes,
so
sure.
That was just really awful for a team that showed up to play, and even all the backups showed up to play, and they just could not overcome the injuries.
Yeah, that was the one bright spot I had from it was that Jaden Byes, the running back, who's 13, looks amazing, and he's a freshman. So like that was, he looked really good, but that was the injuries were brutal.
Yep. All right, what do you got? What's your number 3?
Okay, so the number 3 worst thing is going to be the Penn State offense because they're.
I'm glad you're getting to this.
The defense was good; like they put them in a position to win. On Penn State, I don't know why they're not. They really looked like they were choosing not to throw to the receivers and the tight end, which I don't understand. The most dynamic play they had on offense is the tight end runs, which is super weird. Like it's an interesting wrinkle, but it felt like that was anyway. It was, and then to have the 2 possessions like 1st and goal within the 5 yards and to come away with nothing both times was unbelievable. And they've always lost to Michigan and Ohio State, right? Everyone knows that. That's the story with Penn State. This team could have won this game. Like I really think
Howard tried his hardest to hand it to him.
Yes. No, and it's
pick 6 and the fumble through the end zone.
I know, but that's just it. Like Penn State was, only had
offense only generated 10 points.
Or 6, right? Because it was the pick 6 would have been, so there was Penn State had 13 points. So it was
or whatever, right? Yeah, sorry.
They had 2 field goals like that. Yeah.
So pathetic.
The point I was trying to make was that like when they always lose to Michigan and always lose to Ohio State, and when they play, it's clear that there is a talent difference and that Penn State doesn't have the personnel to hang in there. And it was not the case yesterday. Like they could have won that. They had the personnel to win that. I don't know why the passing game struggled so much.
It looked like they got out-coached too.
It was crazy. So that was unbelievable. It was so disappointing. Like, cause they were right there. And I just don't understand why the passing offense struggled so much.
I don't think he's ever going to beat them. This is just who James Franklin is. And boy, is he getting a lump of coal in the coal section.
Yeah.
All right, but we'll leave that for now. So my number, that was awful. It was just awful. My number 2 worst thing ever, and this kind of piggybacks what you just said about the red zone offense for Penn State, was USC having 2 chances in the red zone at the end of the fourth quarter.
You mean South Carolina or Southern California?
University of Southern California Trojans.
Gotcha.
Having just an enormously disappointing season.
Yeah.
Rivalry game against Washington. Looks great on TV. They were both showed up to play. And in the fourth quarter, 2 trips to the red zone. They're only losing by 5. And they come away with 0 points. They just needed 6 to win. They did not need a touchdown to win this game. And they were in the red zone. I'm not saying across half. They were in the red zone and got nothing twice and ended up losing by 5. That's just inexcusable. I don't understand. Same thing with the Penn State game. How are you in the red zone coming away with nothing? Not even 3 points. I just don't get how especially again, I'm mixing teams here with Penn State's defense. Take the points when you can get them.
Yeah.
And then with USC, what are you doing? So that it's just terrible. They're having just a completely disappointing season. I mean, I was questioning whether or not I'm going to talk about them, but man, I was like, oh, finally, here we go. We got a real game, and then they blow it. So it's just really
the worst
bad.
part about this is that they had 459 yards on offense and lost. And they had turnovers, which is sort of like the old USC.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So this has sort of been they're worried that the USC, this is who they are now, right? Like good under Lincoln Riley, like good offense, but like defense can't do it, and so if you're unable to outscore the other team, then you're going to be losing these games. So it's like you said, it's just really disappointing. They have an amazing roster of talent, but to lose this way, like to not,
this team should be better than this.
Yeah,
that's just what it is.
So,
all right, what's your second worst
thing that I saw this weekend, even though I love the South Carolina Texas A&M game, was Texas A&M tackling was horrendous. If you're a Texas A&M coach or if you're a Texas A&M fan, the coaching put them in a position to be successful. The number of times that a guy was coming free and was going to tackle the South Carolina quarterback and then just missed them, or like just arm tackled him and the quarterback kept running. That happened several times. And that is the difference between, because this South Carolina offense isn't built to come back from like a 3rd and 15 or a 2nd and 20 or something like that. And so they're run the ball, get ahead of the sticks, use the play action, do the quarterback run if you have to, which doesn't normally go for 20 yards, although it did, this game. So it's just so frustrating that they practiced correctly, they schemed it correctly, and were in position and then didn't execute. So that's where it like really went squirrely. Like it was 2020 or whatever. And then it was all of a sudden 44-20, right? So
yeah. It was a few different. Now, to be fair, Sellers is a beast and hard to tackle. But these were
linebackers and defensive linemen too.
I understand.
Right?
I understand.
So
I've had a gripe about this all year long. Players coming free or getting through to the quarterback, but coming in not under control, and the quarterback so easily just making one quick juke and he's gone.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, this guy's faster than you. This guy's got shiftiness more than you do. As a DN versus Sellers, Sellers' lateral movement is going to be better than yours. But if you're coming free, break down in front of him, slow down in front of him. And I've seen it a couple of times in the NFL, mostly the guys who are a little bit more, I guess, more experienced and know how to do this. They'll slow down when they get in front of even a quarterback like Lamar Jackson. And you'll notice Lamar's like, oh, fuck, I was hoping he would come zipping through here and I'm just going to get. But then you startle him because they're like, oh, you're standing right in front of me with no momentum. So he doesn't actually know which way's the quick way to get around you. Yeah. And it seems, I mean, obviously I'm just talking about it. Obviously much easier said than done, but I've seen it done. I've seen guys come through and slow down. And break down in front of them and not come flying through. Fred Warner's kind of good at this. He multiple times I've seen him break down, like slow down and realize if I come in too fast, this guy's going right around me. So to your point, these guys, if they get through to Sellers, you can't go in full speed with your hair on fire. It's going to go right around you every time.
Yeah. Well, and that, like, the point is where, you come in, you slow down, or at least the goal is just to get in front of them. Right. And so you do that quickly, but then you stop. And that's mostly because you don't want to blow by them, because then there's all kinds of problems there. But they can't throw the ball with you standing in front of them. Like, because you could just put your arms up and stop that. You know what I mean? So that's why that's so effective, just getting in front, because then your only option is to run left or right, which is going to be a win against the defense all the time. So
and maintain contain.
Yeah, exactly.
Get in front of him and maintain contain. And if your guys up the middle can't tackle him, okay, he just made a better play. But anyways, it's just amazing how many guys go flying and then just go right past him upfield. And what good is that? Like, stay in front of him.
You're taking yourself out of the play. So.
Right, exactly. Especially for guys that can move like him.
Yeah.
He's not just a stand in the pocket type of guy. Anyways. All right.
Worst thing that you saw.
Worst thing I saw. This is one where I'm packing a few teams in here. Bad special teams.
Oh, good one.
Revisiting the Florida game. The mishandled field goal snap. That went for what, a 30-yard loss or 25-yard loss, something awful like that. And now it was a 50-ish yard field goal, so there's no guarantee they were going to hit it. But they still had the momentum. They were still in that game, even with all the injuries. But that was such a dagger that they did to themselves. That's not Georgia making a great play. That you can't even complete the snap.
No, I know.
Like, there's nothing in the game plan for not completing the snap. That's just assumed that's going to happen. So, and that was brutal how far that ball went. That was one of the signs that all of this fairy tale, are they going to actually win this game with all these backups, kind of ended to me right there. And then the backup through the back-breaking pick that caused us to not get the under. All right, so that's one. Then Michigan State getting a punt blocked for a safety and then a wild snap over the punter's head for another 25-yard loss or something like that. So that's just, again, not accounted for in your game plan to have two awful plays like that. Then Tennessee missing 3 totally makeable field goals in a row and making this a much sweatier game than it should have been. Yes, they won the game, but it would have been a lot easier having those 9 points on the board. That was terrible.
Yeah. So especially at this day and age where people are kicking 50-yard field goals automatically, right? Like, it really stands out now when you miss like a 30-something or a 40-something. Like, that's, that's rare.
And 3 in a row, that starts rattling the coach's confidence. Like, is this guy even going to miss an extra point at this point? So, I mean, I guess lucky for Tennessee that they kind of had that game in hand after that, but that could have. It was way closer for way longer than it should have been. Let's say it that way, because of those 3 missed field goals. So and I'm sure I'm missing some other special teams mistakes, but those are the big ones that stuck out to me. So what's your number one worst ever?
Okay, so the number one worst ever thing I saw in college football this weekend was the Carson Beck throwing 3 interceptions. So he's had back-to-back games of 3 interceptions. They've still won the games, which has never happened before. But it really shows you how good Georgia is, because he's doing everything he can to lose it. And the thing that was so disappointing about it, if you're a Georgia fan, is that they are brutal interceptions. Like, there was one that he threw where there was 2 defenders standing right there, and then the wide receiver, and then there was a defender behind the wide receiver, and it threw it right at the first defender. Like, it not only did it had no chance of being completed, but it had 3 chances of being intercepted. Like, it was like, he's not a freshman. He shouldn't be throwing those types of interceptions at this point. And they have such a good team that you just need to be a competent quarterback, and they're not going to win anything. They're not going to win any big game with him
playing like that
now, and so that was terrible. Like, I just can't believe how much it's degenerated. So that was and crazy.
I'm starting to think their win against Texas wasn't that big of a deal, given Texas could have lost to even Vandy. Now, I don't want to diminish Vandy, but putting all things in context, that was an ugly game where Beck tried to throw that game away too. So they're going to run into a team here where they're not going to get away with that. Like that, you can't keep doing that. All right. So, I was going to give him a lump of coal. So I'm on to Cole and Flowers. Do you have anything else before that?
Nope,
All
that's
right.
it.
So my biggest lump of coal goes to James Franklin. This
Yeah.
is for losing once again to Ohio State. So now he's 1-10 against Ohio State. I just quickly pulled up the stats. I'm sure everyone, Penn State people, already know these. I'm just going to quickly zip through them. He's 1-10 against Ohio State. He's 3-7 against Michigan.
Yeah.
1-13 against top 5 teams. 3-18 against top 10 teams, and 13-26 against ranked opponents. But that's I think his entire coaching career, not just Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, he is, we'll call him small game James. He can't win. He can't win the big game. If that's what the boosters and the administration and the fan base is okay with, then sure, you're going to perpetually be 10-2 and go to whatever bowl game's not in the playoffs. And now he will, just by charity of the 12-team playoff, likely get in and then get his doors blown off again by some legitimate team. This is all he is. And whatever this is his 11th season, 10th or 11th season with Penn State. It isn't changing. Like, Ohio State tried to hand you this game and you still lost.
Mm-hmm.
And the one time you beat them in 11 years, it was on a freak blocked kick, right? Something like that. So you actually have no chance. You have no chance at this conference, and you can't beat the best teams in your own conference, let alone any of the better teams in the country. I don't know. Is he worth the $70 million? And I know it sounds crazy to think a guy who goes 10-2 every year and routinely gets to the Rose Bowl or whatever the games were that weren't in the 14 playoff. This is it. I guess they have to just accept the fact that that's what you've got. A guy who just can't. He's not really in the mix in the top 10 teams.
It's really, like I said, this game was extra disappointing because I feel like the roster is there, and so it does just feel like coaching at this point, which is, even though recruiting's a big part of coaching, but it was that reminds me of Georgia back in the day with Richt, because they would go like 10-1 and 9-2 every year. And
yep.
yeah, so that's and so at some point you have to make a tough decision. But there's many teams that would kill to go 9-2 every year, right? So
yeah, or 10-2, and they have a 5-star quarterback and all that stuff, and now they've got the dynamic coordinator, and still nothing. They looked identical. I know. None of those things made any difference.
That's what's frustrating. Penn State
and
looked
Tyler
the same.
Warren. They just they have what seemed to be all the pieces. Nothing. They looked exact. Would you say the offense only mustered up 6 points?
Yeah, and so that's the disappointing thing from this weekend was the Penn State and USC looking the Penn State and USC of old, right? It's the USC all offense and no defense, and
I really like the game between them, but that's just two lightweights having a game, I guess. Is all that was.
Yeah.
All
so
right,
my first flowers is Xavier Restrepo, wide receiver for Miami. He was not only had a really good game, he had, let me get it here, 8 catches, 146 yards, 3 TDs. That's really good. But more than that, he became Miami's all-time leading receiver at yards, which is nuts. So just ahead of people you might have heard of, Santana Moss, Reggie Wayne, Michael Irvin. He's got more yards than them. So now part of it is because he's played 4 years, and the other of them they don't. But still, to be Miami's all-time leading wide receiver with yards, that's impressive.
Mm-hmm. I was going to give Carson Beck 1 flower and 1 lump of coal for throwing the 3 picks, but also still hanging in there to win.
But you're not a mixed signals kind of guy, so just stick with the coal.
Just stick with the coal. Yeah, he doesn't deserve it right now for how bad he's playing.
No, that's 6 interceptions in 2 games.
Yeah, I'll take the flower away. Maybe a dead rose. How's that?
Look at that.
Well, 3 interceptions, deep. But still winning the game. He gets
all of our listeners are going to have a lot of theories about that one for the dead rose.
Yeah. All right. So flowers. Mikhail Kamara, Indiana.
Yes.
Defensive lineman, 2.5 sacks, 4.5 tackles for loss. This was. I mean, he was dominant. That whole line was dominant. But yeah, just terrorizing.
Like you said, the defense, sneaky good. People aren't talking about it yet. It doesn't seem like
4.5 TFLs in one. That's a lot in the game.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's a ton.
All right, what do you got?
That's it. You go again.
All right. Amari Farrell, 2 interceptions for Indiana. So we've got that's D'Angelo Pons last couple of weeks ago getting 2 picks. Now we got another DB getting 2 picks. Again, this team was just a complete dominant performance at all levels on both sides of the ball and special teams. So I wanted to give some I mean, obviously we could just give Rourke flowers forever on offense, but I want to highlight how
you know
good
what?
this defense really is.
Coming back after the surgery, still playing really well. That's a big deal.
Well, that's a big deal too, but we kind of expect it from him. Which can overshadow how good this defense is. I got a couple more. Josh Kelly, receiver for Texas Tech, eight receptions, 127 yards, 2 TDs. Pretty integral in winning this game.
Yep.
He caught that. He caught the pass on the critical fourth down conversion in the final drive. Apparently, I heard a stat. He's the number 1 receiver on 3rd down in the country. It's an interesting thing to have on your team. Talk about a security blanket.
Yes.
And in that same game, one of the only reasons Iowa State stayed in the game was Jaden Higgins, 10 catches, 140 yards, and a TD. And they have 2 really good receivers, but he was their best. And 2 running backs. Let's go to 2. I've already given LaNorris Sellers, amazing.
He's awesome.
Brashad Smith at SMU had a game. 23 rushes for 161 yards, 2 TDs, and then 71 with a long of 71, 4 passes for 21 yards and 1 TD. So he was just all over the place in that game. And that guy has like amazing breakaway speed on one of that long touchdown run. It was once he got through the defense, no one was catching him. And I thought the safety had him, and he just pulled away. So that guy's he's just that fast. And then another, I don't know, did you get Rocket Sanders on South Carolina?
No, that's a good
20
one.
rushing attempts, 144 yards, 2 TDs, but then 5 receptions for another 92 yards.
Yeah, that's awesome.
This guy had 230 yards. So between him and Sellers, that was almost 500 yards between the two of them.
Yeah, he has to have a significant ice bath after that game because he really carried them. Yeah,
I mean that's what I mean. These 2 players just went bananas on Texas A&M, and if you, I mean, like again, that's all part of my best evers where they were just a complete tsunami in the second half there, and A&M had no answer for any of this.
The only other thing I had was a lump of coal for Kansas State. I was really excited for them. I talked about them this season. I love when they're playing well. I thought they had a good defense or coached really well. I like the dual threat of the quarterback, but then this is a really ugly loss to Houston. And so it's really, and they were in the driver's seat, I really felt like, for the Big 12, and now it's going to be, now they need help. So
it's all really jumbled up now.
I know, it's really too bad. I thought that was I've been enjoying cheering for them. So
Well, they were on the wall. I had to take them down today for that. I was going to give them a lump of coal for that, or put it my worst ever. Either way, that was just a bad loss.
Yeah.
And to your point, they already had a loss, so they couldn't really afford another one. And now
not a conference loss to a team that was like 3-5, right?
Yes. So now BYU's sitting at the top. I guess Iowa State still only has 1 conference loss, but now that conference is getting really jumbled up with people with 2 conference losses. So yeah, that was bad. They needed to show up better than that. All right. Well, I think that's it. That's it for
me.
Our reaction on week 9 of NCAA, and then I guess stick around for tomorrow. We're going to have our NFL reaction, and then a couple days after that, we're going to review our picks.
Yep,
and
did pretty
Dover
well this
once
year.
Again, forgot to place a pick, and we should be doing better. But for some reason, Dover just can't be bothered.
You can give me.
You're getting a lump of coal for that one.
Yep, you can give me a lump of coal. It was we went 6-5, could have been 7-5, but 6-5 with our college bets. Either way, you're making money if you're betting with Dover and Barber.
For some reason, continues to not place the bets that win, and for sure makes sure he places all the bets that lose. Anyways, stick around, come back to the channel. We're gonna have more stuff throughout the week. See ya.